Lake Township Planning Commission for Monday, April 22nd of 2024. Time is 7:03. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You should just have like a recording because we stay up so many times.
Right? 4 times a week.
Consideration of the agenda. What we have on tap for tonight is the next steps for our zoning ordinance revisions. Next steps is about what we can do about the master plan and get that kicked off. May meetings, and then a report out from the ZBA representative, or not a report out, but a ZBA representative action item. So with that, is there anybody that has any questions about the agenda this evening? Any concerns? With that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as drafted?
I'll make the motion.
You have a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved as drafted. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest on today's agenda items?
Did we do minutes?
We have the minutes next.
Number 5 on this.
We haven't
Oh,
got,
wait, didn't you just approve the agenda?
we have just approved the agenda for tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong part on the agenda.
Oh.
I was under public comment other than agenda. Sorry.
That's okay. No, we're there. Anyone have a conflict of interest on any items on the agenda this evening? Hearing none. So let's go to the approval of the meeting minutes for March 25th of 2024. You note there was one item under point 4, under conflict of interest. It says Graves. I believe that should be Carlton.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there, so I doubt it was me.
Yeah.
Any other concerns over the minutes?
No.
If no other concerns, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, or I'm sorry, approve the minutes with that correction under item 4, changing Graves to Carlton?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes with the change 4 to Gray, or to Carlton from Graves.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved as with that edit on item 4. Now we look forward to public comment. Is there any, well, there's nobody here this evening, so there won't be any public comment. Is there any correspondence that has come in this evening? Or
No, there's
leading up
not.
to this
Nope.
meeting? Anything as far as unfinished business from last time or prior meetings?
No.
Then? Okay, let's move on to new business. The first item is the zoning ordinance next steps. Sarah, probably would be good if you could give us a quick summary of kind of where we've last left off and kind of what you suggest would be our next step so we can kick it off for discussion here.
Yeah, so last time the planning commission reviewed the zoning ordinance, you provided comments or edits, questions, comments. So those were incorporated into the draft. So the next step to move this forward is to get a copy of that draft, which I forgot to have Jackie print. So Bob is printing right now for you. That's what he just came in. He just said all 196 pages. Yep. So maybe by the end of the meeting, you'll have a copy of that draft. But the next step, unless you don't want a hard copy, no. So 2 no's. Okay. I'll tell him then.
Does anyone need a hard copy?
We haven't. I'll email it to you. Electronic? Okay.
Should we tell Bob not to print some?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So -3.
Thanks, Jason.
The next steps in this process are to schedule a public hearing on it to get public input. Kind of in my comment here, I was trying to say this, and it's hard to say because you could move forward with the public hearing even without seeing the complete draft tonight, because you're going to get this public hearing, public comment. You can make changes after that. We can have another public hearing, but to try to vet what the public is thinking about it. Or you can wait until you are really comfortable and finalize this document before scheduling that public hearing. Regardless, you have to have at least one public hearing on the document.
So to play that back, we could schedule the public hearing. We could all get our electronic draft. We could review the changes that you have made in response to input that we've provided as a commission. That can all be done in parallel. We have the public hearing, we get the input, make changes there, and we can proceed forward after that point, as long as we address the public comments that we feel comfortable with.
Correct. Yeah. And if you get to the public hearing and you're feeling a lot more work to be done, or you're getting public feedback on a lot of work, we can come back at the next month's meeting or at another meeting, work through that, and hold up another public hearing sometime in the future for that. The comments that the Planning Commission had, if you recall, were kind of, oh, here's a typo, what about this? More question-based than really major policy and content change from what the draft said. But I want you to be comfortable with it. Like, I don't want to I'm not trying to rush you through this process. I want you to be comfortable with it, but also understand that. So it's a typical, like, if we're going through a zoning amendment process, so you have a public hearing, you make a recommendation, it goes to the county before it comes back to the township board. That's kind of the process we have left to go through before it gets adopted and becomes effective. So in that, it's kind of a 3-month process already for that. In that. So I don't know what you're comfortable with, if you remember the document we had before or not. So.
I'll start with Jason and Laura. The two of you have seen it the longest. Are you comfortable with where it is today? Relatively speaking, minus the edits that Sarah's going to bring back to us?
Me personally, absolutely. I'm glad to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I can imagine. I get it.
I am. I wonder, we didn't get a lot of participation as we were going through it. So I'm afraid of what it's going to be like, that like, ooh, one public meeting and, oh man, I feel a little sick that night. So I'm wondering, do anything create, I don't know how much engagement we get, but can you put that PDF out there and get some responses online from people while we wait for the meeting to come up?
Yeah, we have the document, so we can put it online. We can advertise it a couple of times. Well, not really too much, but we can post it at the post office and here and put it on the website. Bob can put it in his report out. So there is multiple kind of exposures, because in the newspaper, it has to be the 15 days before. And so I'm sending it in Friday for the shortest notification in general, legally, that we're required to do. But we can work other avenues. So it would be available for that. And we can see, I guess, what the turnout is for the public hearing. If you want to try to do it in a different venue, or not like in a venue, meaning a different way than your traditional public hearing, we can do that. Or we see what happens. If we get a big turnout, we say, okay, we need to do something different. I'm imagining at the public hearing, there'll probably be a good half an hour where I'm going through the draft and kind of giving an explanation of what we did and what's happening for the public prior to public comment. Or at least I would like to do that, instead of just having you sit here without anybody having any explanation about what we did and why we did things and stuff like that. So we'll see. But yeah, I can send it to get it on the website, tomorrow or the next day. So it'll be a month if we do it in May. Or if you want to do it further out, we could schedule it for sometime in June and let people know about it.
With your experience, what is typical, or maybe it isn't, nothing's typical, but, I'm agreeing with the two of you that I think we need to move this forward, but should we expect that, are people really very in tune with what it says and want to
Right.
nitpick or whatever?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, zoning ordinances usually get more involvement at the public hearing level than a master plan does. Because you're getting, that's directly what impacts somebody's property as far as regulations. I think that also because of how sometimes it's written and the format of it, it's harder to follow than the master plan, where the master plan kind of tells the story. It might be a little easier to read. It's in a more familiar format for the public. So I would expect to have some, but we redid this zoning ordinance, there's not many big policy changes. It more was a reformatting, bringing it up to state law, those types of items. So I'm hoping that through explaining what we did and why we did it will help some of that process as well.
Can we do a kind of summary to go with
Yeah.
that to say, hey, mostly it was these formatting
memo?
kind of things.
Yeah.
And then if you're interested in the things that have changed, pay
Right.
attention to these sections.
Yeah, an overview for it. I think that would be helpful to put on the website. I mean, I would imagine we'll get a couple of people that, they're typically interested in it. But, at the steering committee meeting, we may have had a few people come throughout the process of all of the meetings, right? There was not a lot of comment. And then even when the planning commission was talking about it, how much public was here.
We also touched on a couple of the more items that would have been likely more controversial, the signs.
Yeah.
We also talked about the square footage requirements around village business and commercial for buildings and things like that. So, and there was a few attendees at those times. So
Yeah.
it seems to me that we do need to get it out there quickly, sooner than later, so we can get a temperature check. Because we won't know until we actually do and have that hearing, and then we can see what happens. And if it's relatively quiet and straightforward, then we can advance it pretty quickly. That would be the ideal.
Yeah, it's hard to know until we get there.
Other comments, thoughts?
I would like the chance to review it again, just in complete, for completeness. We also have a new member who hasn't been involved and should have the chance to have an opinion. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but is there any opportunity to have sort of an informal a discussion before the public hearing to gather comments or?
Like planning commission wise or the public?
For the public, to see if there are comments, I guess, before, like you say, we show up and the room's full
Right.
I think
for some
that-
reason, I don't
I
know.
think the public hearing is essentially that. It's not informal, it's formal, but I mean.
I was
people-
saying sort of an informal
Oh.
opportunity to review it or give comments, or I guess they can always
Yeah.
write in, can't they?
They can write in. I mean, I'm willing to try to, one of my thoughts is we could have another meeting, and by we, I mean myself, but, come find out about the zoning ordinance and learn more about it and just, have that kind of venue and opportunity for people to come in and ask questions.
Oh, yeah, and then maybe you can record it.
Right. Oh, we could do that.
And then we can advertise it.
Right. So that could be one way to do it. We could do it at a planning commission meeting where you're here, or maybe it's not a full planning. If there's a full planning commission, it's a public meeting. If it's not a full planning commission, then it's kind of just a listening and it's this dialogue that would happen between, the
That's what I was
public.
thinking, maybe like the hour before the planning commission meeting.
could do
or
that.
something, and say, if you're interested or you have,
Right,
informal question, we still have the public hearing,
right.
but
Yeah.
just more nuts and bolts kind of questions.
Yeah. The hard part about it is that, well, they're not going to have the presentation by then. So there's questions that might be able to be answered by the presentation. But at the same time, I think that does give another avenue for people to participate. And so, I mean, I'm willing to try it. Why not? Right? The hour before. And,
Yeah.
and maybe there's enough people that there is some sort of a presentation that briefly goes over the changes. But with that memo already being out with it, that's the same thing I'm going to tell people during the public hearing. So
I think
perhaps,
because we don't get any engagement on it, honestly, I don't expect that there's gonna be too many people that, like you said, the usual people
Mhm.
that have anything to say. But maybe if you offer it through different channels, maybe you'll get some different
Yeah.
people.
Suggest this, if we were to have the hearing, public hearing in 30, call it 30 days in May, and, you know, if we don't get many people show up, that's going to tell us a lot. And that means a process of the steering committee, you know, because there were meetings, a series of meetings around that. Obviously, the two of you participated extensively in those. And then there were there were times where we spent quite a bit of time here as a planning commission, and we had a number of agendas that were posted so people knew. I guess my point is, if we put it out there as a public hearing and we get lots of feedback, then we know we've got a lot of work to do. If we don't, we're going to have 30 days anyway to process anything that we have heard. And then we can come back for that final meeting and with the objective of trying to advance it 30 days later. So in theory, 60 days from now, we'd be able to advance it, if all goes smoothly, to the county. And if we get a lot of input that is not something that's readily addressed kind of right on the spot, or with, you know, basic edits or whatever, then we'll take a step back and address those issues. I'm not, you know, we want to try and get this done relatively soon so that we can move on to the planning commission, or move on to the master plan and focus on that. I think as a commission, we've all said that, and this was before at least two of you were even on the planning commission. I remember having quite a few discussions where we said, look, we're going to advance the ball on the zoning ordinance, get the amendments in place. We know that we might make some tweaks to them after the master plan, because things in the master plan might dictate things, changes we want to make. Air Park is a good example of that. So, I don't know, I guess I would ask everyone if you'd be comfortable trying to move it ahead in 30 days at a public hearing, see what the feedback is, and then the ensuing meeting, about 30 days thereafter, depending on what we hear in 30 days, we'll either advance it or we'll take a step back if we need to.
I like it. Most people should be back for the summer.
I'm amenable to a good argument.
Well, and again, I think it accomplishes the same thing. So I don't, we don't have to, you know, it'd be different if we said that in May we were trying to advance it. We're not saying that. We're saying we're going to advance it 60 days from now, give or take. So, okay. So that shall be our plan. So Sarah, you're going to create a summary that we can use in advance of the public hearing, meaning like 30 minutes before the actual open up for comments for the public, so they can have a context around everything, and the process that was followed, I think, would be good as well. Then we'll go into our public comments. We'll address those. We'll discuss those public comments, and then we'll come back. The plan will be to come back about 30 days after that to advance it if we can.
Okay. Do you want to hold the hour before the meeting to answer any questions people may have? Like for me to hold office hours essentially to,
That's what
We can advertise for that, sure.
I was just
If you're
gonna
willing.
say, when we have those public comments and people have comments, that's great. But when they have questions,
yeah.
it's difficult. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have a good way to handle it. So that
That's a
would be
good
great.
point.
Well, I guess we got to figure out when that meeting is, and then I'll tell you. I think my schedule will allow that to happen. So, I mean, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to come in and answer
So
questions.
the questions would come, it would basically just kind of office hours with you, so to speak.
Right, and it would just be the hour before this meeting. People can come early, ask questions, there may not be anything. I'm not guaranteeing I have an answer, but
Right.
they can ask questions.
And then you
and-
could come into the main meeting
Right.
with saying, oh, got these following 3 questions.
Right, we
that
need
the
to take a
planning
look at
commission
this
needs to
or
consider.
something.
Is there a
That'd be good.
reason that any of us should or should not be present for those office hours? Or-
It's up to you. I mean, if you want to come and see what people have questions about, you're welcome to. It's prior to the meeting. There's no, as long as you're not discussing in a quorum the document, you're fine. So if you all end up here and are listening to comments, that's fine. If you're not here, that's fine too. Completely up to you.
Would we just say that meeting, the informal part would start at 6 and then the formal part starts at 7?
Yeah,
Nope, sounds good.
you like that?
No.
Okay.
And Sarah, you said you were going to give a couple of reminders during the month before the meeting that it's on.
We'll get it posted. I'll have Jackie get it posted this week on the bulletin boards out here and at the post office. And then I'll talk with Bob about, when they send out regular updates through their email list as well. And we can make sure to do that a couple of times. And then I'm sure that Bob will mention it next week during their board, 2 weeks. I'm still thinking we're the week ahead of the meeting. I know. At their, so we've got a couple of meetings and things happening, so there'll be opportunities to do that. We won't do any individual notifications, so it'll just be newspaper or postings. The people will not get anything in the mail for this. They're not required under law to. So that's something, if anybody starts talking about it or asking about it, there will not be any personal notification.
Can we do anything cool with our website where, don't let, I know. Where you can draw attention to something?
I can
Make it
ask.
Easy to see.
Maybe we can put it at the top. Maybe Bob will let us put it up above
Something.
his report for the month or something. Okay.
Do a raffle.
A pop-up.
Come to the meeting, get a ticket.
That'd be cool.
So Sarah, do we need to kind of
Free
vote
ticket
on
to the
this?
Southeastern
or anything?
Festival.
You're not required to make a motion to schedule a public hearing. I think if there's consensus, but you're also welcome to make a motion to schedule the public hearing. It's up to you.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on the plan going ahead here. Any
So-
questions about it before we move on to the next piece of business?
You'll have your paper copies before you leave tonight, and then I'll send out the digital copies to either at the end of the meeting or tomorrow for you. We'll get on the website and all that good stuff.
Okay, with that, anything else? We'll move on to item B, the master plan, next steps.
So I know that you've talked about the master plan a little bit here or there over the last, couple of years, actually, in various forms. So here we are, and I guess I'll kind of let Andy take it away for the master plan and next steps. So before when we talked about some community engagement, a survey, what's that look like, looking at the document and drafting the document, and then trying to determine the best course to get there. If it's something that, as your planning consultant, I do, or if it's something that you want to put out an RFP for to solicit proposals or bids on the project for. So, and I won't be offended. That's part of the business. I've worked in government for too long, so, but that's kind of next steps is to figure out if you're just saying, okay, let's get started, or if you want to write an RFP to send out to see what everybody has to offer for you. But if you write the RFP, you do need to figure out what you would like how many community engagements and things like that, so that you can compare the proposals you receive to each other, because somebody may do, we're going to give you 8 community engagements, we're going to give you 3.
So my personal preference, but I'm certainly not married to this at all, is that I think we could benefit by having some organization around, some kind of process around this, and somebody that helps facilitate this process for us, so that we're focused on kind of following that process. And as we go through it, it's got an aspect to it of collecting community input. It's got an aspect of, giving us an overview of how you could structure a master plan, what works with our current master plan, what doesn't work with a master plan. Things about, what would we like to see differently? And to do that, it's going to take somebody from the outside. Could also take Sarah. It could be, obviously Sarah will be heavily involved. Sarah, works for a very reputable organization that does this as their primary business. So I think that I'm not necessarily advocating we use Sarah's organization to do this. But I am advocating that we do some kind of a process and budget for it and get it going as soon as we can. So I guess what's everybody's reaction to those comments? Do you agree, disagree, concerns?
I thought it was already decided that Sarah's company was gonna do it. I think we were just wanting to see like a PowerPoint. I think we talked about a PowerPoint, like what's in your package, Sarah? What do you include? What can we do?
Okay.
So I know you said we have a budget for this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know where we are in the budget cycle. Is that?
Well, we just kicked off a new fiscal year. So we've got some money that we can use for this. This process probably will drift over into the beginning of next year as well. We'll see how it goes, but more than likely, by the time we get all the input and synthesize it and draft it and all that, it's going to likely be at least a year. But we do have money that we could use to kick this process off and at least do the community engagement and at least get a good start on the framework of it.
I think it's a great idea. 4 years ago when I first started, we didn't have any structure. We didn't have anybody guiding us, and it was a nightmare. Our meetings were going to 11:30, midnight sometimes. So ever since Sarah's come aboard, we're getting things done, and meetings aren't going until super, super late. So I totally agree with you.
Okay. Sounds good. Others?
I'm in agreement. I don't know I really don't know any other organization that does this, but every time I say who we're working with, they're fabulous. So, and other townships have had this process with the organization. So I have no other reference point to ask for somebody else, and we're familiar. I think we'd save time.
Yeah, I agree. We have expertise already in-house. She's helped to develop Sarah and her company have helped to develop the zoning ordinance, very familiar with the master plan, obviously, and has recently done this for a neighboring township with some of the same goals. So I would support that as well.
In which township was that?
Elk Rapids.
Elk Rapids, yeah. And my wife saw some of the process around that. So she had mentioned how impressed she was with the structure, and she attended a meeting there, and there was community input, and it was really well done. So certainly resonated with me, not just because she was my wife.
And to the extent that I didn't say we need a process, I wholeheartedly agree we need a process.
Since being the newbie here, may I ask the company
It's called Beckett and Rader.
where?
Beckett, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Sarah, you want to describe the company a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, so I work with Beckett and Rader, and we are a planning, landscape architecture, and engineering firm. We have our home office is based in Ann Arbor, but I work out of our Traverse City office. We have a Petoskey office and a Grand Rapids office. So I do planning work for a lot of communities locally here. So for instance, for Torch Lake, I do planning and zoning. Milton, I do planning and zoning. In the village of Elk Rapids, I do planning and zoning. But we also do master plan, park and rec plan, zoning ordinances, we do them all over the state. But Northern Michigan, we have quite a few clients, especially in Antrim County too, because about the top half of Antrim County, we have a planner from our Petoskey office actually covers those. So he's in Banks, Township. We do work in like Ellsworth and East Jordan and Petoskey, Harbor Springs, all the way up the other side too. So, yeah, and we do go all the way around the other side, like Traverse City. I'm working on Traverse City's master plan. And so all over the state, planning and zoning. We're local.
Any concerns about using Beckett and Rader versus another organization or races or trying to do it independently? Hearing none. I'm assuming then we're going to move ahead using your organization,
Okay.
Sarah. And I'm assuming within that as well, that you would tap into your organization for others to help as
Oh, yeah.
needed? Of
Absolutely.
course.
Yep, we have about 8 planners throughout the state. So, I'll be the face because this is, my community, but you'll see other people joining us for community engagement and then also helping with some of the chapters. So we kind of rely on each person in our organization for whatever their expertise is. So we have somebody that's really good in economic development. So they'll work on that chapter, and somebody that's really good in housing. And so get you kind of the best of all aspects.
There's one other aspect that makes us a little bit unique amongst the communities that Sarah's firm has worked with, and that's we have this air park. And there was a consultant, his name is escaping me all of a sudden, who had some particular expertise in that. Steve Langworthy, thank you. And that's something we could always tap into for that particular aspect of the plan. He'd already done some work in advance. There may be some particular zoning that we end up incorporating at some point, but we could also tap into him as well. So, okay. So Sarah, seems like maybe the next step is that you would come back to us, or Beckett and Rada would come back to us with a proposal of how to go about this? What
Yeah, I
the
can
process
go-
would look like?
That's what I'm thinking, maybe an outline in a timeline of next steps and what we want to do to give you an idea of what we're going to cover. And then maybe at the next meeting, we can get more input on what type of community engagement you would like to see. I can kind of talk through, I know we've done it before, but talk through some of the options that we have and see what the Planning Commission would like to tap into for that community engagement. So there's probably, I'm familiar, so that there's already a couple of things that I'm like, oh yeah, we need to hit these topics, but I want to make sure that we are hitting everything that the Planning Commission wants to talk about.
And of course, we can discuss budget at this time as well. How long do you think it would take to have a rough proposal put together for us?
I can have it for your next meeting.
Okay, that'd be great. We can carve out, half hour or something for that. Obviously, we're going to have the public hearing. That's going to be the meat of it, but it'd be great to get through that as well, because then that can give us a good head start. Any other questions or comments, concerns about the master plan? No? Okay. Okay, we're going to move that forward then. Moving on to new business item C, the May meeting date. So this would be our public hearing for the ordinance draft revisions.
Correct, yeah. So right now, because we have it on the fourth Monday, that's a holiday. When we set our calendar, we said when we got to that day, we would figure out what date works. So here we are to figure out what date works. I have down here a couple of days that I have open on the calendar at the end of the month to be able to make that meeting. I didn't know if we were going to schedule the public hearing or not. So initially I was like, maybe we'll just cancel it. But since we're moving forward with public hearing, we should pick a date. So I have May 29th, May 30th, which are Wednesday and Thursday of that week of Memorial Day. And then the 3rd, which is a Monday, or June 6th, which is a Thursday.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. May 29th or May 30th.
Okay.
And then the following week, the 3rd or the 6th.
How do people feel about May 29th, the
Yeah, I was
Wednesday?
gonna say, if we can keep it in May, maybe,
This is for
Wednesday.
the,
Wednesday, the 29th.
This is going to be the public hearing on the zoning ordinance.
does that give you guys, May?
Yeah,
29th?
May.
Okay.
which is like the 4th Wednesday.
I can
It's
read
actually
that.
the 5th Wednesday, so
Yeah,
Yeah, May 29th.
welcome. Yep.
Superman.
Thank you. Would you be, I'll pass them out. Would you be able to check the calendar for the 29th in here, May 29th? Thank you. Is that okay? Awesome. Does
Does May 29th work for everyone?
7th?
The Wednesday?
Yes, please.
I mean, I
Oh.
coach softball, I don't know if we have a game
Oh.
tonight.
Okay,
If not, I'll be here for sure.
okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
We'll
Thank
go with
you.
that. So it'll be Wednesday, May 29th.
Yep, at 7
Jason,
PM.
if you can't make it, then we won't be voting that night. That we know quite certain. So the vote would like to be a month thereafter. Even if nobody shows up and we're ready to advance, we'd still wait 30 days just to let the dust settle to see if there's any other feedback. Because I don't want people to have the perception that we're just shoving it through too quickly. Right. So
Yeah, for sure.
Makes sense.
Okay.
that's it. So that's it
Thank you.
for May meeting.
Yes.
And then we will cross June when we get to that threshold, or maybe we can continue with the June regular meeting. We'll see how it goes. Last item, the ZBA representative. We still don't have one, do we?
We do not have the representative from the planning commission to the ZBA. Kevin had that position, but since he's no longer on the planning commission, we need to appoint somebody. So last meeting, we didn't have enough people. So this meeting, everybody but Bill's here. So hoping to get someone appointed to that position.
And I had volunteered my name.
Are you
You did.
withdrawing it now?
Well, there we go.
So, yeah, Jeff did come to our ZBA meeting last week that we had, which was just kind of a training workshop thing, and got to watch them in action.
Nice.
And so,
So he's volunteered?
right, so unless there's
So I'm
someone
happy to
else.
serve if called upon.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I
Jeff.
appreciate
I do
that.
appreciate that.
So you just need a motion then to appoint him to the zoning board of appeals.
So may I have a motion to appoint Jeff Clark to the ZBA, correct?
I make a
Yeah.
motion to approve,
Appoint.
appoint Jeff Clark to our ZBA, as our ZBA representative.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Thank
All
you.
in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you as well. I appreciate that. Okay. Next item, ongoing reports. Well, zoning administrator, actually, Sarah, that's you, zoning administrator.
The zoning report was emailed to you at the beginning of the month. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you should know about. I don't think so. Does anybody have any questions about anything? No? Okay.
I don't think so. So now, Jeff, in the future, this will be you, but tonight, unless you
I
want, and it comes to
unofficially
make,
observed a training session of the ZBA last Wednesday.
any comments or anything about it that you'd like to share?
The result of the training was to reverse a decision that Bob's commission or the ZBA had made under Bob several years ago. So, yes, it was a much tighter reading of the statute this time,
Okay.
according to the report. So,
And we have different standards, the planning commission, maybe last summer, last fall, approved different criteria for the ZBA along with rezonings. And so some of the criteria was different, but yeah, the ZBA walked through this case. We took the names out and things like that to protect, everybody, but walked through the case as if it was a real case. The supervisor acted like the applicant to answer any questions and make his argument for the variance request. And so it was a good experience for the ZBA to familiarize themselves with the new criteria, but also just, to keep their skills sharp. And then there's some newer members as well. So to have everybody get to be a part of that.
That's cool.
So they're going to do another one with an interpretation, I believe, in June, potentially, if we have enough people for the meeting. So.
Excellent. Okay, so anything else on ZBA? If not, Jason, Anything to report?
Yeah, we didn't have much. We had a pretty short meeting last week. We had no old business. We had one item in the new business, which the day park's gonna be getting irrigation. So, pretty quiet.
So, thank you. Now I guess we move into public comment. Anybody would like to come forward? Doesn't look like it. Any concerns of the commission this evening? I'll start. I don't have any concerns. I would only express that I appreciate, as we're getting towards the finish line on the zoning amendment, that appreciate everybody's patience. We went through a process there and took a step back to get everybody as comfortable as we could, and also allow the public to have time to come in and discuss with us if they had questions. I appreciate everybody's patience, but we are getting close here to bringing this through. Anybody have any questions or comments, input?
I have some information that I would like to share. And it's kind of as a public comment maybe, but I have recently been in, well, since the Nequema Trail started, I've been kind of sharing a chairmanship with that moving forward. And I have some information about the property that we've talked about the last two meetings, well, not last two meetings, but we've had two meetings regarding the property on at the corner of M88 and 31. My partner and I, with the Nequema Trail, the Torch to Bay Trail, have been eyeing that property for a long time and just kind of dreaming about what maybe could transpire with that. And then we were spurred on by these proposals. The last proposal has expired with the owner. So that proposal for the storage units has expired. We met with the owners. They're very, very, very intrigued with what we would like to do. They would really like for us to go forward. So in the meantime, we talked with Tart Trail, and they got extremely excited also. So the place we're at right now is Tart Trail has recommended that we look at that space as a trailhead. And right now, they're willing to help us. They're giving us expertise, but they're willing to help us put money in place, mainly through fundraising. Sort of, they've never acquired property, so this is new territory for them. They only are interested in it for a trailhead, and that's 5.5 acres, I think. So there's a lot of extra property there that they're not interested in. But they're willing to, if we can pull it together, to be the holder of the property until we get the rest of it figured out. And our little personal dream is that it becomes more of a public use property, and that we get input from the community as we go forward, as we raise money. It might, I mean, I don't want to give too much. I have some ideas, but we really want it to be a community-based initiative for that. I have a flyer that we're using right now because we're trying to fundraise right now to acquire the property. And so I felt like, as the planning commission, knowing with the master plan coming forward, and that you should know what our citizens are doing. And so I have, like I said, I have a flyer, and I would like you to read it. If you have people that you know, right now in this first phase, we are looking for larger donors, 5,000 and up. If we can acquire the property, we would be probably fundraising for the rest of our life to maintain it. But, so I just wanted to kind of have the full disclosure what's kind of going on with that. We are working with the property owner. We are in contact. They feel like they have, a timeline that they want to stick to, and that's going to be very challenging, but we're trying to make everybody happy with that, so. But yeah. Any questions?
Well, thank you for sharing that, Denise. Any questions for Denise?
So is that property back for sale then right now?
Well, so what the landowners said, they're managing the trust that land is in, is they really would like it to be a community-based project, but if somebody came right away with, they're not going to be foolish.
Right.
If the right proposal comes to them and it works, they will go for that. So that's why we're
Crunch time.
crunch time.
Fascinating. A lot of work, but fascinating. Thank you.
So anyway.
Any other questions, thoughts? You've got something for us?
Yeah,
or-
I just wanted to share, we're trying to, fundraise, so we have a flyer that we're passing out, and if you know anybody that you think might be interested in being a donor, you don't have to answer questions, you can have them talk to me or for more information.
So is this something that we're going to end up potentially hearing about, like, you're gonna come in front of us? Is that property zoned properly for that use and?
Probably, yeah, yes, absolutely.
Cool, yeah, that's interesting, because I don't know if that was
That's
one of your
where
partners,
TART
but-
is really being, a good expert for us, because they're, like I said, they're really only interested in the trailhead piece of it. But they're kind of giving us a 5-year window to figure the rest out. But if we can come together with the resources to do it, because there's the 500,000 is not for the property in and of itself. That's for the due diligence to make sure the land is safe. The engineering that would have to go into that, because we've already paid for some of the phase 1 and 2 for the extension or the path that goes to there. So there's, they're not saying, oh yeah, we'll just pay for some more engineering for that part. So they want this to be a complete package for that.
Yeah, there was that interest from the public. I don't know who the public was in relation to that. Maybe it was them, but yeah. Cool.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions for Denise? Any other comments from any other planning commission members? Sarah, any comments this evening?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned, or
7:51.
meeting adjourned. Time is 7:51. Thank you.
Oh, did